If you'd like to follow along, please turn your pew Bible to page 789. The gospel reading comes from Matthew chapter 8, verses 28 through 34. When he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarenes, two demoniacs coming out of the tombs met him. They were so fierce that no one could pass that way. Suddenly they shouted, "What have you to do with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now a large herd of swine was feeding at some distance from them. The demons begged him, "If you cast us out, send us into the herd of swine." And he said to them, "Go." So they came out and entered the swine, and suddenly the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and perished in the water. The swineherds ran off, and on going into the town, they told the whole story about what happened to the demoniacs. Then the whole town came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their neighborhood. The gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated.
And tonight we are both grateful and honored to be able to welcome to the pulpit Dr. Heidi Hallebauer from Fernbrook Family Services.
Good evening, everybody. All right. So, my name is Dr. Heidi Hallebauer. I'm a psychologist at Fernbrook Family Center. I've been a licensed psychologist for the past 12 years. I'm also a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. So I've been asked to talk to you guys today about emotional scars. I'm actually going to start by reading a children's book. So I work with both children and adults. This is a really good book that I'd probably read to adults too if I felt like it fit. And I think it's a good way to introduce our topic. All right, so it's called A Terrible Thing That Happened by Margaret Holmes. Sherman Smith saw the most terrible thing. He was very upset. It really scared Sherman to see such a terrible thing. Sherman did not like feeling so afraid. He did not want to remember what happened. So Sherman decided not to think about the terrible thing he saw. Sherman thought that would make him feel better. The first plan seemed to work. At first, the plan seemed to work. Sherman woke up every morning. He brushed his teeth, and he went to school. Sherman played with his friends, he teased his sister, and he walked his dog. Everything seemed all right for a while, but something inside of Sherman was starting to bother him. Sherman had to play more, run faster, and sing louder in order to forget the terrible thing he saw. Other things started happening to Sherman, too. Sometimes he did not feel hungry. Can you tell we use this book a lot? All right. Sometimes his stomach hurt or his head hurt. Sometimes he felt sad, but he did not know why. Sometimes he was nervous for no reason at all. Sometimes he did not sleep very well. Sometimes when he did sleep, he had very bad dreams. The bad dreams scared Sherman. All of these things made Sherman angry. It seemed like Sherman was angry all the time. Sherman started getting into trouble at school. Sometimes he felt so angry that he did mean things. Getting into trouble so often made Sherman feel bad. Sherman did not understand all of his bad feelings. He felt confused. Sometimes parents help children figure out their feelings. Sometimes teachers or other grown-ups help. That is how Sherman met Miss Maple. Miss Maple helped Sherman think about his feelings. She listened while Sherman talked to her. They played while they talked. Sherman did not feel as mixed up when he talked to Miss Maple. Once, when Sherman and Miss Maple were coloring, she told him to draw a picture of how he felt when he was angry. This seemed like a strange thing to draw, but Sherman did it. After that, Sherman drew lots of pictures. Pictures of the pain in his stomach, pictures of the bad dreams he had, pictures of the fear he felt. And at last, pictures of the terrible thing he saw. Sherman and Miss Maple talked about the pictures. He asked if the terrible thing he saw was his fault. Sherman said he was worried a lot about that. No, Miss Maple told Sherman, it was not your fault. Sherman told Miss Maple a lot of things. He told her about the bad dreams. He told her how scared he felt. It was all very hard to do. Miss Maple was proud that Sherman was trying to talk about such hard things. Sherman found that it felt good to let his feelings out. Feeling good helped Sherman feel stronger. When Sherman felt stronger, he did not feel so angry. Nothing can change the terrible thing that Sherman saw. But now he does not feel so mean. He is not so scared or worried. His stomach does not hurt as much, and the bad dreams hardly ever happen. Sherman Smith is feeling much better now. He just thought you would want to know. Can see why that's a good introduction into therapy, right? So, in the mental health world, people who present with what we'll call emotional scars typically meet criteria for what's called adjustment disorder, sometimes post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Some of the criteria that they may come to me with would be nightmares, flashbacks, feeling really guilty, difficulty remembering parts of or all of what happened, avoidance of triggers, situations, reminders of the trauma, jumpiness, always waiting for something bad to happen, irritability, separation from others. The symptoms from emotional scars can also look like clinical depression, panic attacks, generalized anxiety, somatic complaints, which are physical complaints, and sometimes even hallucinations and delusions. But the symptoms do not have to be that severe to be considered emotionally scarring. In general, emotional scars occur when a hurtful experience is not healed. While harder to see than a physical scar, what I see in my work is that emotional scars are no less significant, and sometimes the impact is longer lasting than physical scars. Emotional scars can be caused by various events, including, but most definitely not limited to, ending of a relationship, divorce, a child becoming addicted, loss of a dream, death of a family member or friend, termination of employment, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, domestic violence. There are an infinite number of circumstances that could be emotionally scarring. The intensity or strength of the event can vary as well, from a disappointment to a personal trauma to war. The only rule with emotional scars is that there are no rules. The same event will impact each person in a different way. One event that's scarring to one, another may be able to brush off or deal with without long-term effects. There's no judgment in what is emotionally scarring to someone. Each of us are entitled to our own experience, our own perspective. Just because someone has gone through what the majority would consider to be a traumatic situation does not inevitably mean that person will suffer. Just because a situation is not considered by most people to be traumatic does not mean that the outcome is not scarring. Emotional scars can even be more complicated because they are not something that you see. Each person carries a different weight. You never really know what scars a person what scars a person has by one look, one conversation, sometimes even when you have a close relationship with that person. Often we have control over what scars people see. So what is the role of God when thinking about emotional scars? God is healing. When people tell me they use prayer as coping, often I see a look of peace come over them. Those who use prayer, faith in God to cope with stressful and life-changing events are able to start to see something positive come out of the situation. God helps us see what we can take from the events, what we can learn from them. He can take those hopeless situations and build a sense of purpose and peace. I think of examples that people comment on in the news after big traumatic things in the world, and you think about them talking about the helpers, like cooking food at Walmart for those who are stranded, or helping pick up debris from the tornadoes, sandbagging around houses to prevent flooding. That's where the mindset starts to change. After something scars us, we have a choice. Not an easy choice, but a choice. We can choose to stay a victim of the event, or we can choose to survive. I use an example from when I spoke with someone who had a child with cancer. That woman told me that people often asked her how she did it, and she gave the response, "I don't have a choice." Yes, she did. She was choosing to survive. Getting up every day is a choice to survive. Taking the kids to school, going to work, making appointments, allowing God to guide you in those choices, and giving yourself credit for making those choices will help you continue to feel empowered and heal. Jesus healed. Jesus taught the disciples to heal. A part of dealing with emotional scars is asking for help when you need it. God does not want us to be isolated in our pain. He wants us to reach out for help, whether it be a friend, family, teacher, pastor, or professional. God and Jesus tell us that we are not alone. Prayer and faith bring us peace. Confiding in those who we trust brings us peace. God helps us heal those emotional scars so they become a part of who we are, not all of who we are. There is no weakness in having emotional scars. It takes courage and strength to grow from them. I am humbled and in awe of the people who I see every day with emotional scars, who also carry hope, strength, and love in their hearts along with healing. My advice would be to accept others who have scars, who are different to or similar to your own. We should strive to accept others for who they are, as God accepts us for who we are, just as God wants us to do.
Thank you, Dr. Heidi. I carry my scars. You do too. I have experienced heart-wrenching loss. I have experienced painful, broken relationships. I have made choices that I regret. And in some cases, people I care about have made choices that I regret. And these hurts have caused scars. And as a pastor, I've spoken with too many people who have become stuck within their pain, and they allow these scars to define them. And as Dr. Heidi said, they are faced with a choice to be trapped within their pain, or a choice to seek healing, a choice to let their scars define them, or a choice to survive, to open themselves up to the healing that comes from God, and to be who God has called them to be. In our gospel text for tonight, Jesus frees two men who, Matthew says, were possessed by a demon. Now, the reality is, we don't know if these two were actually possessed by demons, as in a personification of evil. We do know that during Jesus' day, people did not understand mental illness or emotional distress like we do. So if they've encountered something they didn't understand, they would often label it as demon possession or something like that. So whether these two men were possessed or were mentally ill or emotionally distressed, we don't know. And frankly, that's not the point of the story. The point is what Jesus did. The point is that what Jesus did then, Jesus continues to do today. Jesus knew that these two men were not defined by their condition. They were more than their demons, more than their emotional pain. Jesus knew that God had created them to be more. And with a simple word, go. Jesus sets them free. And I could only imagine how the two men then went back to their families who had, we can safely assume, given up, shunned them, adding to their pain. Once there, and once they had convinced their family that they were really healed, they told the story of what this man named Jesus had done for them. Jesus saw past their pain and saw past their scars. He saw them for who they were, and he healed them, and he restored their relationships. There is a promise to be found within Jesus' words and his actions. Jesus sees you. He sees you for who you are. You are not the sum total of your pain. You are not defined by your scars. You are a beloved child of God. And because of that gift, you have some power. You can choose to step beyond the emotional scars and to live as a child of God. Hear and believe the promise that is found within the simple word that Jesus said to those two men 2,000 years ago. Go and be healed. And remember, it is not your pain nor your scars that define you. It is only God's great love for you that makes you who you are. Thanks be to God. Amen.